What's up, guys? Here are my predictions for a UFC fight night happening in Lincoln, Nebraska this weekend. And at first I said this is not an impressive card. Now that I'm looking closely at it, I'll have to take back my words a little bit because there are some compelling fights in this one. And we're going to start with Mickey Gall versus George Sullivan, which should be a closely contested fight. You got Mickey Gall, who only has 5 fights in his career, versus George Sullivan, who has 23. And the reason why I say this is going to be competitive is I don't think Mickey Gall is going to be taken down, and if he does, it's going to be a very dangerous place for Sullivan to be, especially when he's on top. And if Mickey Gall gets George Sullivan to the ground, I do think Mickey Gall should be able to finish the fight. But George Sullivan has a very good ability at recapturing guard, constantly gets it. But then again, he was able to get taken down by Niko Price constantly throughout the fight, and Niko Price is more of a striker than anything. Mickey Gall has, I think, better takedowns. Now on the feet, it's going to be pretty close, and it's not going to be that technical if I'm going to be honest. It's not going to be the most pretty stand-up fight. Mickey Gall has more snap at his punches, faster punches. George Sullivan is more experienced in MMA and also striking, which will give him somewhat of an advantage. He will be a lot more composed than Gall. Even though he's not as dynamic in his striking, he will be more composed under the shots. Because when we look at Gall, when he fought Randy Brown, and he got pressured by the long-range strikes, it was almost like he panicked. He was turning away. He was running away. He was switching stances awkwardly, and you know he didn't want to, and he almost like lifted his knee and tried to put his hand in front of him to keep the threat away. Obvious signs of inexperience and just panicking in that kind of distance. Now, George Sullivan, what he has on the feet is a good jab, a straight right hand, which is pretty slow, and it's telegraphed whenever he throws it, and he has a pretty good lead round kick. Now, it's not going to be the most effective unless he goes high with it, but he usually goes to the body with it, and when you go to the body with it, he could catch the ribs, but he really wants to aim for the liver, so throwing the power right kick, round kick, that's going to be a lot more effective. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Mickey Gall. It's going to be closely contested. I think it's going to be a striking match for a lot of it, for most of the fight until Mickey Gall decides to go to the ground, and I do see him eventually passing the guard and eventually trying to get a submission. I could see a very late submission or even a decision win for Mickey Gall. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a split decision by the end of the day. Then we go to James Krause versus Warlley Alves, one of the best fights on the entire card, headlining the prelims on FS2. You got James Krause, very well-rounded. Now, his takedowns aren't the most impressive. The numbers do justify that. Not even 20% of his takedowns are awarded. And regardless, he should not be going for takedowns against Warlley Alves. Alves is much more experienced on the ground. He is much more dangerous on the ground. He has one of the nastiest guillotines in the welterweight division, and he always explodes into it. Now, that has gotten him into trouble when he doesn't get it, but he has gotten it plenty of times. I think this fight's going to stay in the feet. I don't see Warlley Alves trying to take down Krause. I will be a little bit surprised because Krause is pretty capable himself there when it stays on the ground rather than just scrambling for submissions. I do see this fight mostly being a kickboxing bout. Now, James Krause is very good offensively, but he has a lot of defensive flaws. He keeps his chin really high up, and even behind his guard, he still keeps his chin really high up, and he leaves an opening down the middle usually, which is an opening for Warlley Alves to expose. James Krause is more experienced in MMA. He is a veteran in MMA, but Warlley Alves has a lot of experience prior to MMA in kickboxing and BJJ. He is a 3-time Brazilian kickboxing champion, and he has 12 gold medals in other kickboxing championships. And he is the only guy to beat Colby Covington. He beat him with that guillotine. It's a very dangerous technique of his. And on the feet, Warlley Alves has a very good ability, almost like Anderson Silva, where he lulls the opponent with his footwork. Very constant, but he's always threatening them. Just from his stance and just from, it looks like he's going to throw something. He was calculating you. He's downloading data. He has excellent leg kicks, round kicks. He is super explosive. He's much faster, much cleaner striking than James Krause. And he has excellent combinations. Now, they're not extended combinations, like 5 or more strikes. They're very limited in the volume, but they are so precise and very explosive. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Warlley Alves. I see him landing shots down the middle on James Krause. I see him potentially countering James Krause because Krause does leave himself extremely exposed when he's moving forward. And Alves has much better footwork, and he's much faster, and he has excellent timing. So I see Warlley Alves winning. He could win by a knockout. I see him dropping Krause. If he doesn't knock out Krause, I see him going for a submission and finishing through that. So I see that happening somewhere in the second round or even the first round. Then we go to the biggest fight on the card for me, the fight I'm most looking forward to by a long shot. John Moraga versus Deiveson Figueiredo. This is going to be an explosive, entertaining fight. You have John Moraga, who's probably the best boxer in the flyweight division. He has excellent basic fundamental boxing skills, excellent movements, good tight guard, good jabs, sets up a lot from his jab. He has one of the best left hooks I've seen in the UFC. He has an excellent overhand right, and he doesn't expend energy unnecessarily. Whenever he's throwing strikes, it's to make them count. He doesn't have good takedowns. I don't see him trying to take down Figueiredo. Figueiredo's submission threat is way too much, and he's a lot better on the ground than John Moraga. John Moraga's takedown defense has gotten a little bit better as his game has been progressing. He has fought Demetrius Johnson for the flyweight title, so he is pretty experienced at MMA right now. He's on a pretty good stretch right now, trying to get back to the title shot. Now, although his game has progressing, his footwork hasn't progressed too much in his style of when he engages. He likes to stay on the outside, he likes to move around, look for his openings, but he has a very good feinting game, which can really work against a guy like Figueiredo. He moves around, he's a casual mover, looks for his openings, and then all of a sudden he moves forward on you pretty closely, and he's immediately exiting away with clean, smooth footwork. And he usually gets the opponents to overextend at him or open themselves up, and that is exactly what he's looking for. He'll even throw strikes, not to commit them, showing them at the target, trying to draw out some other motion from the opponent. And when you look at Figueiredo, Figueiredo might be one of the, if not the most powerful striker in this division. He is super dynamic, extremely athletic, excellent technique in his strikes, but he is very unorthodox. That's the biggest thing. He is so hard to time. He fights very well in each stance, southpaw orthodox. He also has a sideways stance rather than Moraga's more traditional textbook boxing stance. And Figueiredo likes to keep his hands down a lot. And he likes to move around. Now, he doesn't move a lot of distance until he decides to move on reaction or try to commit on something on the opponent. Those movements are extremely fast. He moves very fast on his feet when he decides to. And he has a dynamic straight. Southpaw or orthodox, doesn't matter. His straight is so explosive and it's so fast, as well as his jab. The biggest thing about Figueiredo, though, besides his striking power and also his submission threat, which he is excellent with guillotines, and he has amazing control on the top of the opponent, he has this sense of invincibility, almost like Conor McGregor when he's fighting in there, where when he's fighting you, you can do whatever you want to him. You can hit him. You can land clean on him. You can take him down. You can trip him. And he makes it seem to you like nothing affects him. It's crazy to see, especially with his fight against Denis Fontes. When he fought Denis Fontes, he kept getting tripped out. He'll get his kicks caught and then tripped. Every single time. He kept standing up like nothing affected him. He kept walking Fontes down constantly. And his posture, it's just you can just see his confidence in there, which is a big thing, especially for a young prospect who is undefeated. That's going to be a big thing coming to a fight with an experienced John Moraga. But there is something alarming about Figueiredo. He will get extremely close on the opponent, and he doesn't even throw strikes sometimes. He will walk up to the opponent casually with a pep in his step, walk up to them in their face, and wait for them to throw a strike at him. It's crazy to see. It's so alarming. And I don't think that's going to work against a guy like John Moraga. But he does that to figure out a counter. And he's very good at switching stances backwards away when he gets in close like that. When he sees you reacting to him, he'll switch stances backward and land that cross on you. Very hard puzzle to solve. But my prediction for this fight, it's so close. It's so back and forth. If I could, I don't want to, but if I could, I would have made this an even fight, 50-50. But I will lean John Moraga. As high as I am on Figueiredo, I think Moraga's tight defense and his constant defense, where he's never exposing himself, and his ability to keep the pace calm and be patient out there with those powerful dynamic strikes, will keep himself composed when he's fighting Figueiredo. And I think he could potentially land a shot on Figueiredo when Figueiredo is trying to bait him into something by walking up to him or just keeping that low guard, elusive, loose stance. But it's close, man. It's close. I still have Figueiredo as the flyweight prospect. He's the biggest prospect in this division, and he's one of the most promising prospects in MMA right now. So I'll go John Moraga. I'll go by a second-round knockout. I don't see this fight going to a decision. Then we go to Jake Ellenberger versus Bryan Barbarena. This is a very interesting fight with Jake Ellenberger. Last stretch of his career, I would say. Very experienced fighter, but his chin is gone. He can't take a shot anymore like he used to. He got knocked out in his last fight as well. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, and all of those fights have been by knockout. He's been knocked out a lot. He's not going to take a shot for Bryan Barbarena. I'm just going to get straight to it. Bryan Barbarena is a knockout artist as well. Now, he's not a powerful striker, but he has the volume and the pressure to break opponents completely. Jake Ellenberger, though, he has a very good right overhand. It's powerful, it's fast. That's his biggest shot and one of the only strikes he throws. He could try to set that up for a takedown. He could try to go for double legs. Bryan Barbarena doesn't have the most impressive takedown defense, so it could work for him. He could try to set up jabs behind the overhand or even the fake overhand to a double leg. But he waits too much now. He's not as aggressive as he used to be, like he was against even Matt Brown. I don't know what happened. After that fight, he was never that aggressive again. And that's what he's going to have to do against Bryan Barbarena. He doesn't want Barbarena to pressure him because the way Barbarena pressures you is he doesn't stop his volume. You let him go and he's just going to keep going until you fall. Bryan Barbarena has better striking. He's a much more polished striker. He has an excellent left cross. Being a southpaw fighter, he likes to step on the outside with that. Now, I like to see him throw jabs first. He doesn't set up things behind his jab, which is pretty alarming, especially if he's going into an overhand. But being a southpaw fighter, he could throw the left cross and lean and fade away to his own right with his straight and end up on the outside of Ellenberger and land shots through there. Behind the left straight, he usually throws the right hook, and it's a very powerful right hook. He has good teeps from the outside, good front kicks, keeping Ellenberger at bay. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Bryan Barbarena. I think it should be a pretty dominating fight. His power is going to be too much for Ellenberger to handle. His volume is going to break Ellenberger down. As soon as that first left cross lands on Ellenberger, the fight's pretty much going to be a wrap unless Ellenberger can fire back that overhand and catch Barbarena. But Barbarena has a granite chin. It's not going to be pretty for Ellenberger in this one. So I'm going to go with the first round knockout. And then we go to the co-main event, Michael Johnson versus Andre Fili. I think it's going to be a pretty one-sided fight. This fight just caters to him so much. He is a boxer with excellent takedown defense. There's no way he's going to take it down in this one. He is a southpaw fighter, very good long left hand, good at getting the inside of the opponent, lands the jab first a lot too, and he has a very powerful close right hook. They landed on Khabib as well. And Andre Fili likes to switch stances constantly. It depends which stance he's going to be in, but Michael Johnson has a punch for each stance. Johnson has amazing footwork. He's much faster. He's much more powerful, much cleaner striking, and a lot more precise with his shots. He doesn't throw too many kicks. He's more of a boxer than anything, which could hurt him a little bit if Andre Fili is able to land some leg kicks. But Fili likes to get to the cage too easily, right? He gets pressured easy and then moves a lot. It's constant movement, but he moves one direction, which makes it predictable. Especially for a guy as powerful as Johnson, that's a bad formula. And the biggest thing about that, which decides this fight for me that's going to go to Johnson, is that when Johnson pressures you, you have fallen into a huge and dangerous trap. That is the last way you want to fight Johnson. You don't want to counter-strike with Johnson and move back on him and being elusive like that because, number one, he's probably going to outpace you. Number two, he's probably going to outspeed you in those sequences. And number three, you allow him to dictate the range. That is dangerous. Look at how everybody's able to beat Johnson. They pressure him constantly. They do not allow him to create that distance. They do not allow him to be technical. When he is pressured, technique gets thrown out the window and he brawls every single time. Justin Gaethje, Khabib, both these guys, when they came at him the way that they did, he resorted to just brawl. His pride took over and he just wanted to knock this guy out, get him away from him. That's not going to be the case with Andre Fili. So I see Johnson dictating the range, being technical, landing those shots on the outside, finding the powerful left cross, left overhand, or even a lead right hook. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Michael Johnson. I'm going to go by a second or third round knockout. I could see it going to decision. Another thing going for Andre Fili actually is that he trains with Darren Elkins, and Elkins was able to take down Johnson. I don't think it's going to work for Fili. I don't think Fili's going to be able to take down Johnson. Now, if he does, I will be a bit shocked. And if he is able to take down Johnson, then Andre Fili's chances of success have increased tenfold. But other than that, Fili likes to throw kicks from the outside, which are going to get closed in by Michael Johnson pretty easily because Johnson stays in that mid-range where he's able to enter on you really quickly. He doesn't stay too far. He doesn't stay too close. He stays at a distance, almost like Conor McGregor, where it's hard to throw kicks without the threat of him entering on you. And that's a scary place to be, especially when you're on the cage. Then we go to the main event. Justin Gaethje versus James Vick, an excellent fight, one of the best fights in the entire card. You got Justin Gaethje, who's a brawler, big overhands, good uppercuts, likes to stay in your face, likes to walk you down. He has insane pressure. His cardio doesn't really keep up with his pace, but his pace for the first 2 rounds is like you just went through a 5-round fight. He expends so much energy in those first 2 rounds where he could have just stretched it out for 5. But other than that, he lands exploding kicks on your legs. such powerful leg kicks from this guy. And he'll throw it from close range. He'll throw it from the clinch, which is crazy. No one does that. Outside from some traditional Muay Thai fighters, nobody does that. He will literally be in dirty boxing range with you, and he will land a leg kick which destroys your leg. And through that, he likes to stay in close behind his leg kicks, which is pretty interesting. That doesn't normally happen. And he likes to throw overhands at you. He likes to stay in your face, brawl with you. He has a very tight guard, and he shells up a lot. Now, that has gotten him into trouble, where shots get thrown through his guard and connect on him. This isn't boxing. This isn't kickboxing or Muay Thai, where you have 12-ounce gloves, 10-ounce gloves, where you can defend those shots. So that shelling up style can really benefit James Vick. And even when he shells up, people are able to maneuver around him, like Dustin Poirier, for an example. And James Vick is the most elusive guy, besides maybe Michael Johnson, but I would say he might even be more elusive than Michael Johnson. James Vick is the most elusive guy Justin Gaethje's ever fought in the UFC. So shelling up like that is not going to really be that effective, I believe, unless he can get James Vick on the cage and he traps him. And through the shelling up style, he can potentially look for overhands over the top, as James Vick likes to move laterally away from the opponent and the cage. And another big thing about this one is Justin Gaethje likes to duck a lot. He ducks with almost everything, so shots from James Vick, like knees or front kicks or uppercuts, and those are shots he throws a lot, could really catch James Vick and intercept him, potentially knocking him out. He even caught Joe Duffy doing that. Joe Duffy ducked into James Vick to throw some kind of punch, and James Vick connected a right uppercut on him. That can end the show for Justin Gaethje. But the thing about Justin Gaethje's leg kicks, they can really work on James Vick, because Vick doesn't check kicks, and he is a long guy, and there's a lot of area to connect. But the thing is, he's going to need to get his head off the center line when he does that, because James Vick, everything he throws is down the center or up the center. Jabs, straight right hands, knees, uppercuts, and front kicks are the biggest shots from James Vick. He will throw some right round kicks, which could land to the head of Gaethje, but those are pretty telegraphed. He doesn't really set those up. Now, James Vick, I think he's going to have the advantage on the ground if it gets there, and there's no way he's taking down Justin Gaethje. That's just absolutely not going to happen. If this fight goes to the ground, it's because James Vick dropped Justin Gaethje, or Justin Gaethje decides to change his game up and take down James Vick. But other than that, Vick is a mover. He's super elusive. He moves all the time. He doesn't stop with his movements. The leg kicks can severely damage the movement of James Vick. He is good offensively, and he has pretty good counters, as well as long punches. He loves to throw long jabs and long straight right hands. But other than that, he doesn't have a good defensive game. He keeps his chin really high up, and even when he's attacking, he leaves his chin high up and he doesn't defend. That's why he was able to get caught by an overhand from Beneil Dariush. That is absolutely what can happen in this one. Comes in too close on Gaethje, rushes in, caught by an overhand as Gaethje's shelling up. So the biggest thing for James Vick is he has to keep that range at all times and know when to stop his attacks and know when to stop covering distance. Because sometimes he gets caught in the moment and closes it too much, to the point where now he's at a disadvantage because he's too close. So if he has that right game plan, which I think he can utilize, staying at a range, throwing shots from a distance on the slow-moving, plodding Justin Gaethje, land a lot of jabs, just keep this a very technical fight and avoid the brawls, use his cardio. He wants to get outside those first two rounds any means necessary. And throwing jabs from a distance is going to get a lot of reactions off of Gaethje, which is going to make him expend energy. So get out of those first two rounds and then pick it up. Right? As soon as Gaethje's gassing, pick up the pace, land a lot more from the distance, look for the right hand a lot more, and exit away from it because Gaethje's going to throw back and land a lot of head kicks from that. And also tapes to the body to draw more breath from Gaethje. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go James Vick. I'm going to go by a third round knockout. This is a very winnable fight for him if he sticks to a game plan like that. But everything changes if Gaethje goes to wrestling. That is what disappoints a lot of fans. He has this aspect to his game that may even be the strongest aspect of his game, but he doesn't use it. You can even see his numbers here. He has 0 takedowns. He was a super successful collegiate wrestler. Super successful. Doesn't use it. Why? It's a pride issue. So if he decides, you know what, I want to win some fights, I don't want to do this all the time. I can brawl, but I'm going to mix it up a little bit more. I'm going to take this guy down. His chances of winning have just skyrocketed. But I'm going to go with James Vick. Now, if I was a betting man, and I'm not a betting man, but if I were to look at the entire card, you can't go wrong with George Sullivan being around a plus 280 underdog. You can't go wrong with John Tuck which is not a bad matchup against Drew Dober, being plus 170 underdog. John Moraga, although he is a small underdog, he is very capable of winning that fight against Figueiredo. Yuri Alcantara, being around a plus 200 underdog. Can't go wrong with that. Warlley Alves, I would stay away from that one. Eric Anders is a minus 1,100 favorite. And his opponent, Tim Williams, is about a plus 700 underdog. That is enormous. Would probably keep my eye on that one. I would stay away from the Bryan Barbarena fight. I would stay away from the Angela Hill fight with Courtney Casey. Michael Johnson is an underdog. It's almost a pick'em fight in terms of betting odds. I believe Michael Johnson should win this fight relatively easy. And then the James Vick, Justin Gaethje fight is something you probably don't want to go to unless you're very confident in Justin Gaethje. But it depends how he shows up, and you can't really bank on his game plans. So those are my predictions, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe. Now for my next video, I might be making a reaction video to this card, so be on the lookout for that if it does happen. And my podcast is going to be on Tuesday. I also have a few ideas that are going to come out. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.